Every 4 years, we have a general conference. Every 4 years, I don't have my book of discipline, but every 4 years, that book of discipline is up for debate. There's a small section that's called the restrictive rules. We're not allowed to change those. But outside of that, the book is up for debate. There's another book called the social principles. That's also up for debate every 4 years. We as a denomination, either by pushing or by moving, we are constantly and always regularly alive. Are you with me? Every 4 years, the denomination picks up all of these conversations and debates once more and says, are we yet alive? And re-examines all of these positions in light of tradition, scripture, reason, and experience. You, as lay members, have a voice and a part in that. And I want to make sure that you know that always. So if it's any clergy person that's here, if you've got an issue or a concern or question, you should be liberated to talk with that clergy person, to be a voice of representation throughout the whole system. Okay? If there's something in the book of discipline that you don't like, you absolutely can. And I can show you how, if you want, to draft up legislation to say, I think we should change it. You can do that. Absolutely can, and maybe should. How many of you have read the book of discipline? Those of you who are raising your hand are in different leadership positions and you've read your section. I read the trustee section. If you ever get a chance to read the book of discipline, you can read it online, it's free. If you ever read the book of discipline, there's a section called Our Theological Task. I hope that you would read that. It's fantastic. There's also a section on a brief history of the church. You can read that as well. Very, very good. It doesn't read like legalese. It reads quite well. So this representation is a huge component to the structure of the United Methodist Church. In fact, this representation is echoed in other denominations. For instance, the Southern Baptist Convention, right? There's lots of lay members that are part of that convention, right? So this representation is not a unique characteristic of the United Methodist Church, but it is one part of a kind of a sauce of characteristics that, taken in total, contribute to the unique qualities of the United Methodist Church. Now, if the Southern Baptist Convention is one kind of church that takes on representation, let's look at apportionments as an expression from like the Catholic tradition, right? If you go to the next couple of slides there, Nate, sorry, we'll kind of move along. There's this thing they're called apportionments. Does anybody know what apportionments are? He's going to move through some slides. What are apportionments? Tell me, what do you think apportionments are? Yeah, Linda. Great, yeah, so there's a portion. There's all of those, that system, our denomination system, has a series of costs to build an infrastructure to maximize ministry around the world. As a result, those costs are portioned out to every local church. Are you with me? And then those apportionments are then collected and distributed to the general church, the jurisdictional church, and our annual conference to allocate funds for these ministries at various levels. Okay? I want to speak to two things real quickly. One, I've heard some folks call this kind of like like a tax. That, it's like a tax to the church. And this, and that's fine. That's a way to kind of think about it. Like, I get that. Other people kind of called it like a fee, like it's the fee to be able to use the cross and the flame or whatever. Like, I get that conceptually. The reality is when you read the discipline, it doesn't talk about it in those frameworks at all. It actually talks about it as it's part of our theological conviction. It's part of the expression of our theology. If you've read the book of Acts, I hope more hands have gone up. If you've read the book of Acts, or many of the epistles from Paul, this is the model that Paul does, right? He tells a church, oh, I know that you're doing great work out there. this one of Paul's like great little bits is he tells this very, very wealthy church, he says, hey, I just want to let you know, this poor church over here, they're doing this, they're doing this, they're doing this, they're doing this. They are doing ministry you wouldn't believe. I can only imagine what you could be doing with all of your resources, and kind of guilts them into then sending money. A clever little ploy. But about Scripture, there's this idea that if we were to pool resources, we can maximize ministries around the world and move beyond, literally move beyond our walls and our community to reach the Great Commission to the ends of the earth. Right? Now, I'm going to pause for just a second. I'm not here to talk disparagingly about any denomination, but just to highlight a difference. There are large mega churches on this street. They're around. They're great. One of the beautiful things about large churches is that they are able to use financial resources to do big stuff, and they absolutely do. It is marvelous. It is great. No matter how large a single church is, a non-denominational mega church is, no matter how big they are, the United Methodist Church feeds 1 million children, just kids, 1 million children every day. Every day. Even the church, even Joel Osteen's church down here, it's massive. It's massive. They do great work. They're not feeding 1 million children a day, right? They're just not. Your ministry extends beyond what you even know happens. There is a school, the border of Mexico and Texas. La Lydia is what it's called, or Lydia Patterson Institute, LPI. Anybody ever heard of LPI, Lydia Patterson? 2. Now this is unfortunate. This is one of the most remarkable educational systems that exist in the state of Texas that is helping students, young people who wake up at like 5 a.m. to cross the border, to go to school, to learn, to be educated, and then go out into the world. LPI is funded through your apportionments. You, through your financial gifts, are supporting young people's out in Laredo. Did you know that? Did you know that you're transforming lives? Every single year a graduating class happens because of our jurisdictional dollars support that ministry. Do you know that? In not too distant future, the students are going to be going to Glen Lake Camp. How many of you have been in Glen Lake Camp? A little bit more, a little closer to home. Glen Lake Camp is a result of your ministry dollars. Kids are going to learn and perhaps even hear a call from Christ to go into ministry because of your financial support to Glen Lake Camp. You probably never have written a check to Glen Lake Camp, but your support here supports ministries around the world. How many churches in Africa have you started? Do you know? How many churches has this, Keller United Methodist Church, we go to Belize, right? We do international mission trips. Remember when we went to Latvia? Was that where it was? No. Slovakia. We did great stuff as an individual church. It's wonderful. It's great. Do you know how many churches has Keller United Methodist Church started? Keller West, I remember we started that, right? Awesome. Great. How many churches has the United Methodist Church started around the world? Thousands. You were a part of that. You make that happen through your connectional mission giving, through those apportionments. You do that. No matter how big we get and our independence, if it were to come, as it were, from the denomination or disaffiliation, it would come at a huge expense. We might save some money on apportionments, on that tax or that fee, but we would lose our ability to be in ministry in that way all around the world. When people give to United Methodist Committee on Relief, UMCOR, yes, you know this? Great. And you probably know, because we say it with some regularity, how much of your dollars, when you give to UMCOR, go to UMCOR. Go to the disaster. 100%. How is that possible? When I give to the Red Cross, right, not all of it goes to that particular disaster. Why? Yeah, you are in your donation, you are also supporting the infrastructure of Red Cross so that Red Cross can respond. That's great. Your apportioned dollars already build the infrastructure so that when disaster strikes and people give to UMCOR, that infrastructure is already built. You don't have to worry about it, and all the aid goes directly to the need. The United Methodist Church is really, really clever because John Wesley did something quite remarkable. And the problem with John Wesley's remarkability is that it's super, super boring. George Whitefield, he was one of the great orators of his day. Americans across the land knew the name George Whitefield. Great preacher. George Whitefield said, "My preaching and all the people I brought to Christ is like a rope of sand compared to the work that John Wesley did." John Wesley built an infrastructure so that ministry could happen, and it all happens kind of behind the scenes, and you just don't see it. It's just not flashy. It's just not out there. Your apportioned dollars go to help the very vision that John Wesley was given to create a global church.